Hello guys, you're welcome to today's tutorial. My name is Amaka and this is Lizama Stitches. If you're here to subscribe to this channel, please click on the subscribe button and subscribe, and also turn on the notification bell so that whenever I upload new videos, you'll be notified. In this tutorial, we are going to be learning how to draft an off-shoulder pattern, the full scale. I have a video on how to draft an off-shoulder bustier pattern, the half scale, but this one is going to be the full scale. So if you want to know how to draft the half scale as well, you can. I'm going to leave the link of that video in the description box below so that you can check it out later. This is going to be the full scale. That is a long one, the one that is going to have the hip measurements and the full length of the blouse. With this one, you can make blouse. You can make an Igbo blouse. You can use this to make a lot of things like a full blouse. So let's get started. Now this is my less basic bodice pattern. So I'm going to briefly explain what I did here. Now this is my shoulder line, which is also going to serve as the starting point. This is my neckline. My neck width is 3 inches and the neck depth is 3 inches. This is my shoulder line. From this shoulder line, I came down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant, which I connected to the neckline. And this is my armhole curve. This is my chest point. This is my bust point. This is my under bust point. This is my waist point. This is the hip point, and this is the full length of the blouse. This is the full length of the blouse. Now, in case you don't know how to draft a basic bodice pattern, I have a tutorial on how to draft a basic bodice pattern. I'm going to leave the link in the description box below so that you can check it out later. Now, let me label these lines. Now, this is my chest point. This is my bust point. This is my under bust point. This is my waist point. This is my hip point, and this is the full length of the blouse, and this is my seam allowance. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to impute my dart. But for me to do that, I'll need my bust span measurement. The bust span measurement I'm working with is 7 inches. Now 7 divided by 2 gives you 3.5 inches. Plus half inch seam allowance, which I'm going to use to join it because I'm going to cut it, gives you 4 inches. So I'm going to mark 4 inches. So I'm going to mark 4 inches here. Now I'm going to mark it here. I'll mark it on the bust. I'll mark it here. And I'll connect it. I'll connect the points. So the next thing I'm going to do is to find the midpoint of this line. Now the midpoint of this line, so this is the midpoint of this line. Now I'm going to connect this point to this point. Now I'm going to impute my dart. Now on the waist point, I'm going to impute my dart. I'm going to remove 2 inches for my dart. I'm going to use 2 inches. Now this is how I'll distribute it. I'm going to mark half inch here, and I'll mark 1.5 inches here. On this point, I'll do the same thing. On the under bust point, I'll mark half inch, 1.5 inches here. Now on the bust point, I'm going to come down by half inch, and I'll go up by half inch. I'll mark now from this line, I'll come down by half inch, and from this line, I went up by half inch. Now I'm going to connect the points. So I'm going to connect this with a straight line. And I'll connect this point to this point. I'll connect this point to this point. Now for my off shoulder, I'm going to use 5 inches for my off shoulder. So from this starting point, I'm going to come down by 5 inches. Now this is optional. You can decide to come down by 6 inches or 7 inches depending on how low you want your off shoulder to be. You can also decide to use 4.5 inches for your off shoulder. It all depends on what you want. So I'm going to connect this point. So this is my off shoulder. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove, now on this point, I'm going to remove 2 inches for my dart. I'm going to remove 2 inches for my dart. So I'm going to mark 1 inch on both sides of this line. That is, I'm removing 2 inches for my dart. Now I'm going to connect this point to this point and this point to this point. Now I'm going to blend here this part because our bust is round. Okay. On the hip point, I'm going to go up by 1 inch. Now from this point, the hip point, I'm going to go up by 1 inch. And I'll connect this point to this point and this point to this point. The next thing I'm going to do is to take my horizontal measurement. I'm going to take my horizontal measurement. Now the bust circumference I'm working with, I'll start with the bust. The bust circumference I'm working with is 35 inches. 35 divided by 4 gives you 8 3/4. Now 8 3/4. 8 3/4. Now this is 8 3/4. 8 3/4 plus this dart value. This is that value that I'm going to cut off from here. Now this is ½ inch. This is ½ inch, and that gives you 9 1/4 plus 1 inch, which I'm going to use to join here together, and that gives you 10 1/4. So I'm going to mark 10 1/4 here. Now on the same measurement I have here, I'm going to bring it down here, 10 1/4. Now on the waist, on the underbust point, I'm going to take the underbust measurement on the underbust point. Now the underbust circumference is 29 inches. 29 divided by 4 gives you 7 1/4. It gives you 7 1/4. 7 1/4 plus these 2 inches. These 2 inches that which I'm going to cut off. I'm going to return it here. 7 1/4 plus 2 inches gives you 9 1/4 plus 1 inch, which I'm going to use to join this together, gives you 10 1/4. So I'm going to mark 10 1/4 here. Now on the waist point, I'm going to take the waist measurement on the waist point. The waist circumference I'm working with is 27. 27 divided by 4 gives you 6 3/4. Gives you 6 3/4. Now this is 6 3/4 plus these 2 inches, which I'm going to cut off from here, gives you 8 3/4. Gives you 8 3/4 plus 1 inch, which I'm going to use to join this together, gives you 9 3/4. So I'm going to mark 9 3/4 here. Now on the hip point, I'm going to take the hip measurement on the hip point. The hip circumference I'm working with is 38 inches. 38 divided by 4 gives you 9.5 inches. It gives you 9.5 inches plus this 1 inch which I'm going to use to join. I need 1 inch to join this together, gives you 10.5 inches. So I'm going to mark 10.5 inches here. Now the same measurement I have on the hip point, I'm going to bring it down here on the full length. I'm going to take the same measurement here, 10.5 inches and 10.5 inches. Now here, these 2 inches I'm going to remove from here. These 2 inches I'm going to remove for that. I'm going to return it here. So now I'm going to connect this point to this point. To create a new angle, I'm going to connect this point to this point. Now what I need here is a slight curve. It's not going to be as deep as this normal angle. What I need is just a slight curve. And this is how I'll do it. I'll connect this point to this point. I'll connect this point with my hip curve. So this is it. Now I'm going to add my seam allowance. I like adding my seam allowance on my pattern paper, but this is optional. You can decide not to add your seam allowance on your pattern paper and add on your fabric. But I like adding my seam allowance on my pattern paper because it makes my work easy. Once I place my paper on my fabric, I'll just cut. So I'm adding my seam allowance on my pattern paper. If you want your off shoulder to have sweetheart neckline, all you need to do is just to come down by 1 inch, come down by either 1 inch or 1.5 inches and connect it to this point. Connect it to this point. Let me show you how to do it. Now, if you want your off shoulder to have sweetheart neckline, all you need to do is just to come down by 1 or 1.5 inches. Let me use 1.5 inches. Come down by 1.5 inches and you connect it to this point. Just like this. You connect it to this point. Just do something like this and you have your sweetheart neckline. But this blouse is not it will not have a sweetheart neckline. I'm not doing that. I'm maintaining this line. I'm going to maintain this line. I want to close this dart, but before I can do that, I'll have to open this dart. I'll have to open this dart leg. That is where dart manipulation comes in. So I'm going to open this dart. So I'm opening this dart. You know, at times when you sew off shoulder, when you want to sew when you sew off shoulder, after drafting, after cutting, you will see that this one and this one will no longer be the same when you want to join it. So to avoid that, this is what we are going to do. You see that when you bring this together, you see that they are no longer equal. You see that they are no longer equal. So I'm going to blend it. So just a little blending. I'm I'm cutting off the darts. Now there's something I'm supposed to do here. I forgot to do this while before I started cutting, but it's not late. I can still do it. Now from this point, I'm going to go up by 3 inches and I'll connect it to this point because I want to shape my blouse a little. There's this beauty shaping your blouse gives to your blouse, but it's optional. You can decide not to do it if you don't want it. It's optional, but I want to do it. I want to shape this blouse. So from here, now from this point, I'm going to go up by 3 inches and I'll connect it to this point with my hip curve. Just like this. And I'll cut it. This is the back panel. Now this is my zipper allowance. Let me label it. Zipper. This is my zipper allowance. This is the full length of the, okay, let me start from here. This is my chest point. This is my waist point. This is my hip point. This is the full length of the blouse, and this is the seam allowance. Now I'm going to impute my dart, and for me to do that, I need my bust span measurement. The bust span measurement I'm working with is 7 inches. 7 divided by 2 gives you 3.5 inches, plus ½ inch seam allowance, which I'm going to use to join it together, gives you 4 inches. So I'm going to mark 4 inches here. Now every measurement I'm taking it from this line. I'm taking it from this line. This here is the zipper allowance. Let me explain what I did here. Now this is my starting point, which is also going to serve as my shoulder line. This is my neck depth. Now this is my neckline. My neck width is 3 inches and the neck depth is 1 inch. And this is my shoulder line. From the shoulder line, I came down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant, and I connected it to the neckline. Now this is my armhole curve. This is my armhole curve. This is my chest point. This is my waist point. This is my hip point. This is the full length of the blouse, and this is the seam allowance. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to impute my darts. Now for me to do that, I'll need my bust span measurement. The bust span measurement I'm working with is 7 inches. 7 divided by 2 gives you 3.5 inches, plus ½ inch seam allowance, that gives you 4 inches. So I'm going to mark 4 inches here. Now I'm taking my measurement from this line. And I'll connect it. So the next thing I'm going to do is to impute my darts. Now the darts, now from this chest point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. And on the waist, I'm going to remove 1 inch for my darts. 1 inch for my darts. So I'm going to mark ½ inch in between. I'm going to mark ½ inch on both sides of this line. ½ inch here and ½ inch here. Now, on the hip point, I'm going to go up by 2 inches. Now I'm going to connect these points. Next thing I'm going to do is to, now for my off shoulder is 5 inches, just like the front panel. The same measurement I used for the front panel, that's what I'm using for the back panel. So my off shoulder is 5 inches. I'm using 5 inches for my off shoulder. And I'll connect it. Now here, I'm going to find the midpoint of this line. On my shoulder, I'm going to find the midpoint of this line. Now this is the midpoint of this line. So I'm going to connect this point to this point. So I'm going to eliminate the zipper bulge. On the waist point, I'm going to go in by 3/4 inch. And I'll connect this point to this point. And I'll connect this point to this point. So the same thing I did here, I'm also going to, now on this point, I'm going to mark 3/4 inch again. And I'll connect it to this point. And I'll connect it to this point. So I have a new zipper allowance. Now this part is no longer useful to me. This part is no longer useful. On the chest point, I'm going to take my bust measurement on the chest point. Now the bust circumference I'm working with is 35 inches. 35 divided by 4 gives you 8/3/4. 8/3/4, and this is 8/3/4 plus 1 inch, which I'm going to use to join this together, gives you 9/3/4. So I'm going to mark 9/3/4. Let me turn my tape this way so that you will understand, so that you won't go and start taking your measurement from here. So this is what I'm doing. From this line, I'm going to mark 9/3/4. Okay. Now this one, now here, I'll need 1 inch to join here together. So I'm going to replace that 1 inch here. 1 inch. And I'll connect it to this point. So what I need here is just a slight curve. I have a new armhole curve. On the waist point, I'm going to take my waist measurement on the waist point. Now the waist circumference I'm working with is 27 inches. 27 divided by 4 gives you 6/3/4. Gives you 6/3/4. So I'm going to mark 6/3/4 here. This is my line. This is the main line. This is the main line, not the new zipper line I constructed. On my main line, I'm going to mark 6/3/4. Now 6/3/4 plus this dart that I'm going to cut off, this dart value that I'm going to cut off, gives you 7. It gives you 7/3/4 plus the 1 inch I'm going to use to join it gives you 8/3/4. So I'm going to mark 8/3/4 here. Now on the hip point, I'm going to take my hip measurement on the hip point. The hip circumference I'm working with is 38 inches. 38 divided by 4 gives you 9.5 inches. So 9.5 inches plus this 1 inch I'm going to use to join this together gives you 10.5 inches. So I'm going to mark 10.5 inches here. 10.5 inches. Now the next thing I'm going to do, now the same measurement I have here, this 10.5 inches, I'm going to bring it down here. And here. So I'm going to connect this point to this point. So I'm going to connect this point to this point with my hip curve. Now connect this point to this point. So the next thing I'm going to do now, because I want my blouse to be curvy. I want to curve my blouse. Now this is optional. You can leave yours straight, but there's a kind of beauty that this shaping gives to your blouse. So from this point, I'm going to come up by 3 inches. And I'll connect it to this point with my hip curve. You can actually use 2 inches for this. I use 3 inches because I've already added my seam allowance. When I start sewing, look at where the curve will be coming from. Hope you understand my point. So I'm going to cut it. So this is the back panel. So now this is my off shoulder pattern. This is the front and this is the back. We are going to stop here for today. Now, if you learned something from this tutorial, please like this video. When you like this video, YouTube algorithm is going to show this video to more people. And also subscribe to my channel to support me. Subscription is free. Feel free to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Dizama Stitches. We've come to the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.